Hey, come see us live. We're doing our Rumble Time show September 27th in Los Angeles. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, and we'll be in Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. So I've become aware most recently of the dangers of seed oils. And now there's almost nothing you can eat that doesn't have seed oils. And you have to really look. And seed oils are toxic because that sounds good. Oh, it's vegetable oil, right? But the way they extract the oil out of those seeds, a lot of times they have to use something akin to turpentine, right? So they have to put that something called hexane. They have to put that on it to get it out. Then it becomes so smelly that they have to deodorize. So they have to process it over and over, and then it's filled with the worst thing you could put in your body, and it's in everything. Correct?
Everything. It's soybean oil is the top single source of American calories.
That's unbelievable. So now go ahead, try to eat something that doesn't have high fructose corn syrup or soybean oil or sunflower oil or some kind of horrible oil. So there's only two oils that are good to eat, right? So that would be extra virgin olive oil, extra virgin, and then avocado oil. Is there any other oil?
I'd add butter. I'd add butter in there.
Okay.
Like a grass-fed butter. I mean, as a simple principle, there aren't animals in the wild that are systematically obese or metabolically dysfunctional. We're born with an innate sense of, eating and knowing what's good for us. You can't really overeat butter. You can't really overeat steak. You can't really overeat broccoli. Like the food that we're biologically made to eat has mechanisms within it that let us know whenever we hit satiety levels. And basically our body, we're born, like most animals, with an innate sense of what's good for us. The problem with seed oils, which are really, to me, this larger mix of the ultra-processed food, why are this ultra-processed food dangerous, is because the cigarette industry created the ultra-processed food industry. I always go back to this. In 1990, the two largest companies, everyone needs to understand this, the two largest food companies in the world in 1990 were Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds. As smoking rates went down, they used their cash piles in the 1980s to buy Kraft, U.S. Foods, Nabisco, and they were the bulk of U.S. food production, literally, in the 1990s. And they lobbied for, more seed oils to be available. They lobbied for highly processed grains with glyphosate on them to be omnipresent and healthy. They lobbied, and paid Harvard to say sugar didn't cause obesity and was perfectly healthy and a good source of energy for kids. It led to the food pyramid. And the problem in mass with the seed oils and all of these ingredients that we don't recognize on the label is that they're combined by literal tobacco industry scientists who moved over from the tobacco department to the food departments in the 1990s. And they're weaponized to hack our brains and make us want to eat more and hack our satiety signals. And that's why calorie consumption has gone up. And the byproduct of all these chemicals, these cheap chemicals mixed together, is that it's also impacting our microbiome and our cells in very problematic ways. And if you look at chronic conditions from when the cigarette industry actually shifted from cigarettes to food, it has just exploded, all the chronic conditions. So, we have all these studies, very micro studies saying, oh, seed oils are healthy. This is healthy. This is healthy. No, we should not be eating this ultra processed garbage that's mixed together in these science experiments to hijack our biology. We are not going to out hack, what's happening to our health. We've got to get back to basics. And I think the problem is that these companies, in addition to just pushing this crap on us, are also in control of the research. The food industry, the ultra-processed food industry, spends 11 times more on nutrition research than the NIH. If I were in charge of nutrition science and research, I would fire every single nutrition researcher and nutrition grant in the U.S. government. Nutrition research is ultra-processed food marketing documentation. That's all it is. It's ultra-processed food company PR. We need to have simple principles. And my principle would be: don't eat seed oils, don't eat added sugar, and don't eat highly processed grains, ultra-processed grains, enriched flour, wheat. We can talk about that. But if you take those three ingredients out of your diet, you're going to be in a much better place.
So it's hard to do, by the way, just to let people know. It's
100%.
hard. It's hard to get those things, those out of your diet. It really is. And especially people who live in what they call food deserts, right? So they don't have access to fresh food. All they have is they go to buy food at a local corner snack store, and it's got all these. It's just nothing but. I tried to buy. So I was getting on a plane, and I was like, I'm going to buy some nuts. So I went over and I got a can of mixed nuts, and I just decided to. I was at the cash register. I decided to look. It was filled with seed oils. Like, so, because if it's not dry roasted, it's going to be roasted in these seed oils, and it's going to have all that garbage in. So you think you're doing something healthy. You think you're eating nuts. That this is supposed to be good for me, but it's filled with that garbage. I mean, that's why Americans their longevity going the other way. The life expectancy is going backwards now because our food is run by corporations, right? And that's what Bobby Kennedy's talking about when he says, I'm going to fight big agri, right?
Yeah, it really, the food desert thing and the availability really makes me angry, because you mentioned vaccines earlier, and obviously that's a tricky subject to go down, but I just want to say one thing about that relates to the food issue. The medical system knows how to be strongly worded. They know how to say something emphatically. I think we can all agree that the medical system speaks in a very stern voice and a very clear voice when it comes to adhering to a schedule of 72 shots for a child. And there's no price that's too high. There's no ambiguity. It's you need to give your kids these shots. The medical system is really, really clear when it comes to adherence to pharmaceuticals. But strangely, when it comes to nutrition, and when it comes to 33% of young adults being pre-diabetic, 50% of teens being overweight or obese, and this metabolic health crisis among kids ties to our obviously toxic food supply. Oh, no. We need to take social justice into account. There's affordability. It's actually classist and racist to suggest that parents should buy any other food, the whole food, right? That's a luxury that we can't possibly expect. It's too expensive. The kids need treats once in a while. Sugar's okay. It's all muddled when clearly 9 out of 10 killers of Americans are foodborne illnesses. When there's a diabetes and obesity and chronic disease crisis spreading among kids, the medical system can't speak in a clear voice about that, and suddenly issues like affordability and practicality come into play. And I just think if the medical system had the moral courage and clarity to talk about food with the same clearness that they talk about 72 shots for kids, we'd be in a much, much healthier place, because we do listen to medical authorities when they talk. Smoking rates did go down when the Surgeon General said, it might be a bad idea to be smoking in the 1980s. When Dr. Fauci said, get the vaccine, 90% of Americans got at least one. When the food pyramid came out and said, eat more carbs, eat more grains, 20% of our diet shifted to that. So we need, literally, it all starts with leadership. But unfortunately, Jimmy, what I'm seeing, and really, it's not really what I'm seeing or what it's not a conspiracy, it's just a fact. The ultra-processed food has been the most profitable invention in the history of capitalism for the healthcare industry, because 95% of healthcare spending is on chronic disease tied to food. So this explosion of chronic conditions has been an absolute literal gold mine. And that's why, in my opinion, the medical system isn't only not speaking clearly about food, they're taking money from food. The American Diabetes Association has actually taken money from Coca-Cola. The American Academy of Pediatrics takes money from ultra-processed food companies. They're actually in cahoots, which is just even more shocking.
So I mean, my personal experience, I remember I came down with a metabolic illness. It was called hypophosphatemic osteomalacia, and it was horrible, almost killed me. And my bones were hollowed out, and my spine collapsed. I had lots of bad things happen. And luckily, I found I went to doctor after doctor after doctor, one worse than the rest. And you think doctors are geniuses. They're not. Just like anything else, most of them are hacks. And then there's, like maybe 20% are good, and then maybe 5% that are great. And I got lucky and found one of the 5%, Dr. Sharp, and he figured out what was wrong with me, and he got me on it was a very simple fix to treat me. Can't cure it. But what I've noticed is that no Western doctor ever asked me about my diet. except Dr. Sharp. Dr. Sharp did. And I remember I went to a Chinese medicine doctor, and what the Chinese medicine doctor did was change my diet. Yeah. And he got me off carbs and ultra processed food and had me take herbs and stuff. And I was like, there's no way. The stuff he doesn't want me to eat, that's all I eat. I'm like, this is never going to work. I said, but I paid him so much money. I was like, I'm going to try it for at least a week. After the third day, I'd never felt that good in I couldn't believe it, just changing my diet. What a difference it made. And they never tell you about this in Western medicine. They never even ask you about your diet. So that's just to back up what you're saying and back up what your book is saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, my sister, who's we're on this mission together. We were raised in this traditional kind of, hey, like trust the system. Being a good Republican, being a good American, is supporting traditional industry. We both went to Stanford together. As I mentioned, she's top of her class, Stanford Med School, and then gets into residency. And she was interested in nutrition and holistic health, and she had mentioned to a patient who had debilitating migraines, diabetes, depression, high cholesterol, kidney issues, like a whole 70 pages of charts, was seeing 7 or 8 different specialists. And Casey went on PubMed and learned about a link between migraines and food, and mentioned that. And she was reprimanded. She was reprimanded by her attending surgeon. The attending surgeon also actually said, stop being a pussy. And you did not go to dietary school. You are here to do serious medicine. You are here to prescribe a pharmaceutical, or you are here to cut someone open. And that is serious medicine. And we can let the nutritionist deal with whether to eat broccoli. And that is ingrained. Casey told me the dean of Stanford Med School, the first week of class, gave a speech and essentially said to these budding doctors that the American patient is lazy, that the American patient isn't going to change from their sedentary lifestyle and their Big Macs and all of these things. And what's so tragic is, and a key principle I have, is I think that's such a lie. I mean, my mom, the reason my sister and I are on this path is because my mom, in 2021 had a pain in her stomach, went in to get a scan to Stanford Hospital, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She learns with a text the next day that she has, and died 12 days later. And was perfectly healthy before. And sitting across from the oncologist at Stanford, they said it was a tough break. And it's not a tough break. We're missing the warning signs. We're, dealing with what are truly lifestyle illnesses, and doctors just simply aren't telling patients about this and incentivizing it. My mom was on 5 medications, which is lower than the average amount that a 70-year-old is on in America. She was told that her, high cholesterol was a statin deficiency. She was told that her high blood sugar was a metformin deficiency. And I can tell you, my mom wanted to meet her grandkid, who she wasn't able to meet, my son, that was recently born after she died. And she wanted to be there for my sister's wedding, which she's not going to be there for. I don't see many Americans who are trying to kill themselves. I don't see many Americans who want to be poisoning our kids. So I just don't think we're getting the right information. And I think there's this real embedding of like dietary stuff and, these literal tons of food that's 3D printing our bodies and cells. It's the most important component to our health, just demonstrably. The fact that my sister and I, through different routes, were kind of trained at Stanford, that's just not real science. It's just nothing more than a moral blind spot. And I think, not to take it too political, but, this has been something the left's been talking about. I think it is so positive that I was watching a Trump rally recently. They were talking about regenerative agriculture.
Yes.
And they were talking about, taking the poisons out of our food supply, to raucous applause from people wearing, firefighting hats. It's like, this is a absolutely, we are being distracted from this issue, that we are poisoning ourselves. And, this book, other books, podcasts, you listen to your podcast, Joe Rogan, on down, Americans are gravitating to answers. What's going on? And it does get to food. I mean, it's just the truth.
Hey, come see us live. We're doing our Rumble Time show September 27th in Los Angeles. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, and we'll be in Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.